Welcome to the last video in our 4-part series on McKinsey's personal experience interview. In this one, I'm interviewing Alara, an ex-McKinsey consultant, for the growth dimension. This is a new PI dimension McKinsey introduced in July 2025, replacing the previous dimension called courageous change. Just like in a real PI interview, I asked her a standard question for this dimension, listened to her answer, and then followed up with a few questions to get more detail. At the end, I'll share my feedback, what she did well, and where she could have made her answer even stronger. Before we begin, if you're preparing for your PI interview and want personalized coaching, you can work with me directly. I've helped many candidates secure their McKinsey offers. I'll share the link to our coaching page below. Let's get started. All right, Alara, can you tell me a time when you had to rapidly learn something new to tackle a challenging situation?
It would be when I moved countries for my last job. So I'm born and raised in America, and I wanted to have an international experience and get to work with people from different cultures. So I took up a job abroad. And I spoke the language of the country that I went to. So I assumed that it wouldn't be a problem for me to assimilate. But I later found out that there's more to actually integrating into a society than just speaking the language. And so I actually experienced a lot of challenges, which included feeling a little isolated, lonely, even the small things like knowing where to buy your groceries or knowing when to take certain transits or when to not, the traffic routes, this and that. But it also carried into the workforce as well. When you're working with people, speaking something uh, is different than actually being able to convey it in the way that they'll understand it. And so it took me some time, and people thought I was a little distant, maybe because of my American mannerisms of being a little bit more pragmatic, which equated to maybe being a little bit intimidated by me. And as a consultant, that's not the best thing. Um, but I overcame it by taking a step back and trying to really understand um, the cultural roots of the people that I was working with. And this wasn't specific to even the country that I moved to, because I ended up working in a bunch of different countries. And it was something that I had to apply every time I would start over somewhere. So once you understand the cultural roots and what's the norm and what's not, then comes the observation of the people. How do they act? What do they do? How do they joke? And then you try to practice that and eventually, hopefully, gain their trust. And with trust comes, of course, other benefits that when you're working, you definitely benefit. And then the final thing I'll say is that regardless of where you are, habits are very important. And so I found out through my struggles that as long as I was able to establish a set of routines that I was able to do wherever I went, it would make me feel like I was lost a little less. And that came into importance when, for example, as a consultant, I was staying at hotels for 3 months, and then you have to like rebuild your life basically to the area that you go to. But now that I have these routines, I knew what was important, I knew what to prioritize, and then everything else I just had to fit in between those.
What kind of routines?
So for me, it's waking up at the same time, sleeping at the same time, which is very important and a little difficult, but at least being able to draw those boundaries. The second one is working out. The third one is wherever you go, maintain your social relationships. There's nothing more important than people, I think, relationships that motivate you. Being able to establish that with my team, allocating enough time where I got to know them as people. So work wasn't just work, and wherever I was at wasn't just like a temporary place, but it actually felt like I belonged there. And then, of course, working out because it's a natural dopamine booster, memory booster, and that would help out with my work.
And I understand that this is in one of your latest employers, and I wanted to better understand this adoption. How long did it last, and did you seek any help from other people, or did you find yourself on your own and just trying to navigate through this?
Initially, I was trying to navigate it on my own. But mentorship is where I think things changed. And I always tell people, like, if you can, wherever you go, you need to find a mentor that views life in a similar way that you do and that can guide you. And it was an older employee at the company, slightly older, who was able to see the world from my perspective. And so she noticed I was struggling a little and she stepped in and she sort of taught me the ways, to be honest. She was like, okay, Laura, this is how we do it here, and this is how they react, and this is why they said this, and this is what you should do. Even this is the hospital you should go to. This is the way that you pick this up, and so forth. So,
Would you have done anything differently to speed up this adoption?
yes, I would have. And if I ever, I think, move around again, I think my assimilation speed will be probably less than a few weeks. What I would have done is I would have focused more on finding suitable people that can make somewhere that can teach me the ways rather than trying to learn them on my own, which is what I did. And I think a lot of people make the mistake in doing that. They try to do it themselves, but getting help from others is so important. It's like a little shortcut in life. And so I've come to the conclusion that it's not where you are, but it's who you are with. So from now on, I try to find the people that will make me feel like I'm at home, whether at
Okay.
work or abroad.
So one last question. So talking about the results of this particular example, right, that you feel maybe more adapting yourself to the new country, but how do you measure it? Like, what are the observations that you have that makes you feel that, hey, what I did actually worked out?
Uh, Two things. The first thing is mood, of course. When I'm no longer feeling anxious or upset or sad, I'm actually feeling happy or at least neutral. And then the second thing is, if I was to look at it from job performance, creativity and comfort in expressing my ideas. If I feel like I can share my thoughts and I'm contributing more to a project by putting forth maybe an innovative way of doing things, then I feel like I've obtained that safety, that I've been able to establish it by establishing the right support system around me.
Okay, makes sense. Thanks a lot.
Thanks.
Here's what stood out to me in her answer. Alara picked a challenge with strong learning potential, moving to a country where she already spoke the language, only to find that cultural norms, workplace dynamics, and social integration were the real challenge. She showed self-awareness by realizing that speaking the language wasn't enough and explained the steps she took to speed up her learning. Things like observing local behaviors, understanding cultural roots, and building routines she could use anywhere. One of the strongest points came after I prompted her, when she mentioned seeking mentorship. That's exactly what growth is about, finding ways to learn faster and being open to guidance. She also reflected on what she'd do differently next time, finding a mentor earlier. Now, here's how she could make the story even stronger. Her initial answer was just under 3 minutes, shorter than the minimum 4 minutes recommended for a PI response. That didn't give her enough time to show the full learning journey. She could have included short anecdotes from specific situations at work that taught her something new. Mentorship, one of the most valuable parts of the story, only came out after I prompted her. Bringing it into the first answer would have shown proactive learning right from the start. Finally, in her first answer, she only covered the context, problem, and actions. Her results and learnings only came out after in the conversation, so the story felt incomplete at the start.